Hi everyone. Today we're going to focus on something called the at-a-glance outline, and I will tell you right away that I do not expect you to have this entire outline done today. We will work on it tomorrow in class. But yesterday you did a very basic plot diagram or plot roller coaster, as we refer to it. And today, now that we have a very basic idea, I want you to start doing some more specific outlining of your novel. So we're going to complete something called an at-a-glance outline. Now, what the at-a-glance outline does for you is it provides you kind of the traditional story structure, and it's kind of the basic bare bones of a story. It's not the only structure that is available, but it makes it a little bit easier to follow and make sure that you have all parts of the novel necessary. And then remember, as long as you know the rules first, you can break them later. So the traditional story structure is set up as Act 1, which is the setup, Act 2, which is the development of your story, and then Act 3 actually involves the climax and the resolution of your story. And then it says there's usually a turning point at the end of Act 1 and at the end of Act 2 to kind of propel or make your story go forward. So as much as you're going to have a main climax of your story, you're going to have different points of suspense, and your character might kind of feel like they have accomplished something or won something, or things have gotten a little bit better. But of course, you always have to have continuation of problems so that your reader continues to read. The at-a-glance outline offers a quick way to just fill in blanks. It guides you to answer the questions that you're going to need. And hopefully, by the time you're done with this at-a-glance outline, it will allow you to write faster and in a more focused way when we get to November. So it's going to force you to think about some of the important details, like what types of props would be found in the setting that I choose. And the answer to this may then spark an idea when you're writing. For example, I could have the villain use a shredder to hide evidence of his indiscretions, since he will be in an office building during this scene. Or I might say something like, I want to get really creative here. I could move this entire scene to the zoo and have a goat eat the receipts, showing he was out with another woman. ... So this outline is going to cover all three acts and will be a guide throughout NaNoWriMo. So you really want to make sure that you do this to the best of your ability. Again, when you look at this outline, it first asks you for a title. You don't have to fill this in right away, or you can do, just a brief title right now. You can always change the title later. I'm really not worried about that part. But you'll see that Act 1, Week 1 is the first set of questions, and it wants you to describe what's going to happen in Act 1 from the initial story hook to some sort of turning point. Because remember, your story always needs to be moving forward. So what's the setup going to be? What is the mood and the tone going to be in the beginning? And then what's going to be some sort of hook or incident that's really going to get your reader interested in the book itself? What's the turning point going to be, and what is at stake for your character? Why should your reader kind of care about what's happening with your character? There are all kinds of boxes for you to figure out. You don't have to write complete paragraphs in these. You can even just bullet point some things. What is motivating your protagonist? Is it getting in a job? Is it a new relationship? Is it getting out of a weird situation? What is their motivation? It asks you for some questions about some supporting characters, and then the time period. I know that some of you are doing current day and some of you are doing some different time periods. Act 2, Part 1 is what you will start in Week 2, and this is briefly describing what happens in the first half of Act 2, from where the problem intensifies to a temporary triumph. So you want to put some different levels of excitement and some different levels of accomplishment and things going right and things going wrong for your character, so that you have a lot of different emotions in your novel. So describe how you want your reader to feel when reading this act, and think about how you want your protagonist to feel as well. What is the problem and how is it intensifying? Um, is there some sort of temporary triumph, whether psychological or exterior? And think about whether or not you want to have a subplot play a role in your story. So do you want kind of a secondary story? It might also have to do with the main character, or it might have something to do with one of your supporting characters that is happening on the side. Again, some more boxes. In week 3, you're going to be focusing on Act 2, Part 2. And again, this is describing what is going to happen in the second half of Act 2 from the reversal to the second turning point. You want to have a second turning point. Describe how you want your reader to feel. Once again, a lot of these questions are the same. Describe the second turning point. Think about how it relates or sets up to the final resolution. And then more little boxes. And then we're finally going to get to Act 3, Week 4. And this is what happens in Act 3 from the final obstacle to the resolution. And so what is going to be the final obstacle for your character? So if you're thinking all along about one big obstacle, when you're talking about Act 1 and Act 2, what are going to be the little obstacles in the way, along the way, when you're trying to deal with that final obstacle? What is the climax of the story going to be? Remember, you know from freshman English that the climax of the story is the part of the story that the reader is always going to remember. And then, are there any loose ends that you want to tie up in the resolution? Now, this is your story, so if you want to have a clear resolution in your story, then absolutely put one in. If you feel that you want to leave some things open-ended so that people can determine for themselves what's happening, or if you just want to leave it on a cliffhanger because maybe you want to continue this a second time around, then think about that as well in terms of your ending. And then it's always important, as you can see, to think about how you want your reader to feel. So what do you want your reader to feel at the end of the story? Do you want them to be happy? Do you want them to feel love? Do you want them to feel sadness? Do you want them to feel anticipation for something else? Do you want them to feel frustrated? How do you want that reader to feel when they finish your novel? And then there are some important questions at the end. It says, think about whether your villain is defeated in the end. If he is, how? What are his crucial mistakes? How are readers likely to respond to his failure or success? So if you have an antagonist, a physical antagonist, you will answer these questions. If you have more of an abstract antagonist, you might not have as much in this box. And then it says, think about whether your hero wins in the end. If he does, how? What does he learn through his victory or defeat? What is his biggest accomplishment or mistake? So think about this in terms of your protagonist. Does your protagonist have victory in terms of whatever it is they were trying to accomplish? And then, last but not least, what do you want your reader to learn from your novel? What do you want them to take away from it? So really, you can answer these questions in any order that you would like, but it might be easiest to start with these 3 questions before you do some of the earlier questions. A lot of this is your own choice, and I will be back tomorrow to help you with anything that you have questions with. So that is a little review of this at a glance outline. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.